are one of the micronutrients. So in terms of micronutrients, we have minerals and vitamins. The vitamins are either fat-soluble vitamins or water-soluble vitamins. The minerals are divided into two. There are major minerals and we have trace elements. So major minerals and trace elements, so all the vitamins are water soluble, but together the minerals and vitamins are referred to as micronutrients. The macronutrients are water, carbohydrates, lipids, and protein. So the examples of major minerals are sodium, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur. These are examples of major minerals, while the trace elements are, as indicated, iron is an example of a trace element, zinc is a trace element, fluoride is a trace element, and the others, as you may know them. What's the difference? The difference in terms of classifying one group as being major, the other one as being trace, is the amount that we require. The major minerals are required in amounts of 100 milligrams per day or more, therefore they become major. With the trace elements are required in less than 100 milligrams a day, and that's the whole reason. It's not about importance, it's about how much we require. You will see, for example, calcium, the requirement for calcium is very, very high. The requirement for zinc is pretty low, and iodine even much, much lower, but doesn't mean that then you can do away with the one you need a little less than the other. So everybody is important in terms of minerals. It's just that one group you require it in more amounts than the other. What are we going to cover for major minerals? We will only talk about calcium. We're now going to talk about sodium, potassium, and the others. I will dwell on calcium. For the trace elements, I will cover iron, zinc, fluoride, iodine, and yeah, okay, those are the ones that I'm going to cover. So the first four under trace elements, they are the ones that, okay, that's how we're going to move. General to all minerals is the issue of bioavailability, and I'd like to address this before we go further. Bioavailability refers to the rate and the extent to which nutrients are absorbed by the body and utilized for the same, by the same rather. The issue is that if you take 20 milligrams of zinc now, number one, your body may not absorb all the 20 milligrams. Number two, not all that is absorbed will be utilized. And so what comes to play a role at the metabolic pool, at the metabolic level, that's what is bioavailable. The rest is not. If you get a bank account, you have seen that they will tell you, if you check your bank balance, they say balance 2,000 kwacha, available 700 kwacha, 1,000, because many will kids. So available 1,000. It means what you can draw is only 1,000. Although there is 2,000 kwacha, what's available for you is much less. So bioavailability is affected by several factors. One of them is the dietary composition, and I'll just give you examples here. Dietary composition, in terms of, if you look at what's called non-heme iron absorption is enhanced when you have meat protein in the diet. In the absence of meat protein in the diet, then bioavailability is affected. You can go around this way. Yeah. So bioavailability is affected if you don't have a meat factor in it. There are also other factors that I will explain later. But just having a little bit of meat in the diet, you find that the absorption of non-heme iron is enhanced. So it means that bioavailability of iron is improved by having meat protein. The second thing that may affect bioavailability is the issue of charge. If you look at zinc and copper, they are divalent in nature, and therefore if there's too much of one, it affects the absorption of the other. They kind of compete for absorption because they have similar charges. You see the same with iron and zinc, for example. Too much iron will affect zinc absorption. Too much zinc affects iron absorption because they are similarly charged and therefore they compete for absorption. The other thing is that there are certain vitamins that are critical for absorption. One of them is vitamin C. When you consume foods rich in vitamin C, and we've covered vitamin C already, one of the great sources of vitamin C are citrus fruits. So having a source of vitamin C, when you take a meal that has non-heme iron, it increases the absorption of the non-heme iron. And that's why dietary recommendations are that if you want to improve your iron status, take a meal with a source of vitamin A. Vitamin D enhances. We've talked about vitamin D as we looked at fat solid vitamins. And vitamin D enhances the absorption of calcium. In the absence, a diet that is consistently deficient of vitamin D results in deficiency of calcium. So vitamin D enhances the absorption of calcium. Lastly, in terms of bioavailability, just to observe that there are certain chemicals that affect nutrient absorption. Remember, nutrition is the science of food, nutrients and substances therein. One of the substances is called phytic acid. Phytic acid physically binds, it chelates, it makes divalent cations unavailable. So too what's called oxalic acid or oxalates, and there are others called tannins and a few others that I'll mention as we go on. These reduce mineral absorption. If you are taking ngaiwa, for example, ngaiwa nsima with a source of calcium, a source of iron, because there's a lot of phytic acid in it and fiber, it's going to bind the divalent cations and make them less available. So when you process into foera, you reduce the phytate content, and therefore the little calcium, iron, zinc that's available in it is fairly better absorbed. These are the realities of issues of bioavailability. Look at spinach. Spinach has got plenty of calcium, and I'll come back to this in slides that follow, but only 5% is absorbed from spinach because spinach is very high in oxalic acid. So bioavailability is affected by real things. Although you might be consuming adequate amounts from a dietary perspective, there are things that will block bioavailability and we have to be aware of them. We're going to begin with calcium. Calcium is a divalent cation, that charge of 2. It is the most abundant mineral in the body. As you're seated there, you have no less than 1.1 kilograms of calcium that you're carrying in the form of your bones. An average adult of 60 kilograms would have 1.15 kilograms. And that's the most abundant mineral in your body. Let's compare the minerals across, one by one. What do we notice? If we just look at a range of selected nutrients, what you see is when you look at the major minerals, calcium swings all the way from 0 to 1,150. The next most abundant is phosphorus, and it goes down to sulfur and sodium chloride and magnesium. Notice among the trace elements, the only one that appears a little bit is what? Iron. Just a tiny little bar, 2.4 grams. Iodine, you don't have 0.2, you have 0.024. A tiny little amount. But let me tell you, that tiny little amount when it's deficient, the results are devastating for life. And that's what I will show you in terms of evidence. 99% of all your calcium is seated in your bones, deposited during childhood. For those of you that are still growing up, every day that you reach foods, you eat foods rich in calcium, you are taking part of the calcium. and adding it to your bone, and your bones become denser and richer and better, preparing you for ages to come. So most of it is in the bone, and the bones and teeth. The teeth, how many teeth do you have? Very few. So comparatively, I would say most of it is really in the bone. But because you got a little bit of teeth, then you also have it in the teeth. 99%. I'll account for the 1% later. Oh, there it comes. So 99% is in the bones and teeth. It's combined with phosphorus to form a strong substance called hydroxyapatite, and a few other components also make that. And that's what makes the concrete inside your body, which is your bone, to help you to live every day and to carry your body around, becoming a mineral crystal of phosphorus, mainly made of phosphorus and calcium, and other agents also would help in there. That's 99%. Where's 1%? 1% of your calcium is in your blood. So out of all the calcium, only 1% is in your blood. But the body jealously regulates this 1%. Because although it's 1%, doesn't mean it's unimportant. The 1%, as you see the roles that come, plays extremely critical roles, functions in the body, which are essential for life. Yes, calcium in the bone is giving you the skeleton on which your muscles are then built on it, and then your fat levels on top, and then covered by your skin. But 1% is in the blood, and it's not less important when you see the roles of the 1% of calcium in your blood. You will notice that although it's 1%, but the functions it plays, it performs are critical to life. Let's begin with calcium in your bone. First of all, to recognize that it performs two functions. One, it's a bank, okay? Because in times of need, when the blood levels of calcium diminish, what your body typically does is to go knock on the door of the bones and say, remember we kept a little bit of calcium here? Your bones say, yes, you did. It's time you gave us back. And literally, your body draws calcium from the bones and puts it in the blood for the blood to utilize it, for your other body parts to utilize it. So it's a bank. The more you deposit, the better. I mean, that's how banks work. So at the time of need, you go and find a little more plenty. It is also part of the bone structure. Yeah, that's what gives us the structure of the bone. So those are the two functions. I want you to notice also that the bone is not inert. What does inert mean? Chemistry, physical science. Something that is inert, it means non-reactive, yeah? Yeah. But the truth is that the bone is actually not inert. The bone is reactive, the bone is living. There was a lot of belief for decades in terms of understanding nutrition and health of the human being and the skeleton, that bone doesn't, the moment you have bone, you get bone, it doesn't change. The truth is that it changes. It changes because bones gain and lose minerals all the time, and it's a process called remodeling. There is mineralization. When your bones receive minerals, they are getting mineralized, they become denser, they become stronger. So that that's what gives you a stronger structure, because the bones are inert, they receive and lose. The turnover in teeth is not as rapid as in the bone because of fluoride. And we're going to talk about fluoride later in the day. Bones tend to lose and gain a little faster, more rapidly than teeth do. Let's account for the 1% calcium that's circulating in your blood. What is it doing? Notice these roles: maintaining normal blood pressure. An absolutely critical role of calcium. Although it's very little, 1% only of all the entire calcium, is to maintain normal blood pressure. It participates in blood clotting. Calcium helps us that as we bleed, then there must be clotting. Otherwise, you'd be bleeding profusely. Just going and going and going. How about transmission of nerve impulses? As you're seated here, your body is very, very busy taking nerve impulses from point A to point B. So anyways, just like we communicate every day on mobile using whatever platforms you use, our body also is busy transmitting impulses and helping us to live, as you know, the functions of nerve impulses. And also regulation of muscle contraction, including cardiac muscle. The contraction of muscles is helped by calcium. It's part of the process of contraction of muscles, including the cardiac muscle, secretion of hormones, and activation of some enzymes. And that's why earlier on I said when you look at the functions of the 1% of calcium, you will appreciate that the fact that it's just a tiny little amount compared to 99%, it's not less important. It plays extremely very critical roles for life, although it's only a small amount. How do you get your calcium in your body? Several ways of doing it. For us in this part of the world, milk, small fish, eaten with fish, yeah, absolutely, eaten with bone is a sure way to get your calcium. Unless you are into milk and milk products, like every day you drink plenty of milk. But if you don't, your options are really shrinking. And what I believe is that our intake of calcium is increasingly diminishing. Then I got a student, his name is Ruben Malema, he's in the third year, and he's going to investigate calcium intake in the normal population. Just you and I, are we meeting our calcium requirements? So he'll be assessing what our dietary sources. And my hypothesis is that we are not meeting our calcium requirements. When I observe the way dietary practices are changing, how we shun away from small fish, how we shun away from matemba and others, and when we're eating fish and maybe even cooking. There are fish that you cook and even the bones become soft. Okay, you cook them over a long period of time, not 5 minutes they are done, no. It takes some time. The bones are soft, so that by the time you finish eating, there's no trace of fish remaining in your plate. Those kind of fish, you know what, eat them. Let me repeat, eating small fish, eating matemba, eating the bye-byes, eating bonya, eating all these things, doesn't make you a lesser person. It just makes you a person who knows what you are doing and preparing yourself for the future. That's what it is. So don't get millions of kwachas out there when you graduate and say, now I'm done with matemba, I'm done with this thing. The moment you make that decision, you are making a decision for some of the slides that I'll show you in a few moments. Broccoli, yeah, broccoli is also, in terms of plant-based foods, broccoli and bok choy. What do you call this? What is this? That's Chinese cabbage, actually. Legumes also are rich in a good source of calcium. But remember, the problem with plant-based sources of calcium, their challenge is what? Binders, calcium and fiber. So in beans, yeah, you get calcium, but the problem is phytate is also right there. The problem is that fiber is also right there. So although when you analyze in the lab, you have high amounts, but when you bring it in the body takes just very little. And some mineral waters, including hard tap water, also is rich in calcium. Let's talk about the bioavailability of calcium. Unfortunately for you and I, calcium is poorly absorbed. At best, during periods of growth, and you're talking about kids and teenagers, adolescents, you're looking at 50 to 60%. So I give you 1,000 milligrams of calcium, you only absorb 500. Give you 400, you absorb 200. That's a challenge that is there. And this is during periods of growth, kids and adolescents. Healthy adults, 30%. When you grow even older, you qualify to become the elderly, it goes even much lower to 25%. So your grandma, my grandma, at best, if they're in good health, they're going to take only 25%. You give them 100, they'll take 25. Give them 1,000, they'll take 250. That's the challenge with calcium. The body, at maximum, either from a supplement or from a meal, will absorb only 500 milligrams of calcium. That's at best. To say this body is working at the best condition, 500 milligrams. What is the problem? In seeds, nuts, grains, and vegetables, the problem is that calcium is bound by phytate and oxalates. They physically bind it, making it unavailable. And to make matters worse, calcium absorption is decreased by a high intake of phosphorus. The more phosphorus you take, the lesser calcium you absorb. And if you have a diet deficient in vitamin D, you will reduce absorption even much further. At the end of the day, you just wonder what happens to calcium. What Ruben Malema is doing is simply collect data on dietary intake. So simply look at the diet. You go in a food composition table and say, your consumption gave you so much calcium, that's all. He will not go at the metabolic pool. If we are to collect data at the metabolic tool to look at issues a little deeper, we would find that the absorption is far much lower. So be careful when you become choosy about the sources of calcium. You may not be consuming adequate amounts of calcium to begin with, and then these challenges are there. So at the end of the day, the amount of calcium you use every day is extremely very little. Well, you want first the consequences now. The consequences don't come now. The consequences come later. The sorry story about calcium deficiency is that deficiency of calcium affects the integrity of the bone. The strength of the structure that carries you is affected by deficiency of calcium. Every day that inadequate calcium is taken, the body nods its head and says, okay, thank you very much for what you have done. Another day comes, it says, okay, thank you, we'll meet along the way. The result of that in adults is a condition called osteoporosis. Osteoporosis, I'll show you the slides, but it means the bones become frail. They become weak, and they can easily break. And as a person grows older, well, I think I'll come to that later on. Basically, an adult bone begins to lose the calcium at around the age of 30. You begin losing calcium from bone. It's a natural process that occurs. In women, it significantly increases at menopause, and the reason is that the hormone estrogen diminishes at menopause. And that's the cause of menopause. And therefore, bone loss in women at menopause just nosedives. And then it returns back from the nosedive 6 to 8 years after menopause. It bounces back. So it's kind of like immediately after menopause, the first 6 to 8 years, there's a nosedive in terms of bone loss. And a woman in menopause may lose up to 20% of their bone mass just in those 6 to 8 years following menopause. Then when they hit around the age of 65 to 70, it is back to pre-menopause level. So it's kind of like a swing that happens, that bone loss deepens, then it comes back to, if this is the menopause level, just after menopause, the years 6 to 8, it really plunges 20%, and then begins to grow back again to premenopause levels later on, but there's that effect that happens. So if you look at the chart, the graph here, bone density is this, and these are your periods of active growth. On average, I think a human being would stop growing around the age of 20. After 20 years, don't expect to grow taller. Expect to begin shrinking actually with age. Okay? So you reach your peak bone mass up to the age of 30. So from the teen years, you're around 13 there, up to around the age of 30. Those of you that are still under 30, you still have room to increase your bone density. How dense your bones are by eating more bonya and drinking milk and everything else I have said, if you're under 30. Because after that, from around the age of 35, bone loss begins up to the time that you depart. Okay? So you're continually losing bone all the way. Look at this woman. You may have seen these cases of adults, the elderly stooping, you know, and the severity differs. Others stoop more, others just a little less. That's terrifying. And so 20 years later, you have done everything in life. Your kids are they have finished university. They have accomplished. You're an accomplished woman or man. Then people realize that you are short. You are beginning to become shorter than you were. Why? Because your body is drawing calcium from your spine. It's drawing calcium from the backbone. So you see a person begins to stoop. And that's why osteoporosis is called a pediatric disease with geriatric consequences. Pediatrics is about children. Geriatrics is about old people, old age. So it's something you suffer later in life for the sins you committed in childhood. And I call them dietary sins. When you don't eat well, you are committing dietary sins. And it catches up with you when you least know it is. So the issue is that if you don't lay down a strong bone matrix in childhood, don't think that post the age of 30 you will. You just have to live with whatever. What happens is that osteoporosis develops slowly. It is a silent process. You don't see it and feel like, I think they'll get your osteoporosis. There's no such a thing like you feel your bones are losing calcium. You don't feel it. It's zero. Just live every day. It is irreversible at late stage. When you have gone past the period when you should be depositing bone and enriching your density of your bones, it's irreversible. You just have to wait for consequences. The fractures are a result of common stresses. People with osteoporosis will fall down and break their bones very, very easily. How many people are affected? It's estimated 200 million people globally are affected. And to analyze it, to know if a person has osteoporosis, has to undergo X-ray in a machine called DEXA, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry.